Instead of replaying the same game over with slightly more powerful enemies, how about change enemy placement? Reward the player with more gear that can be further upgraded past its normal thresholds, and raise the player's level cap. If this sounds like your idea of a quality mode to replay the game, then you're in luck if you decide to go through Final Fantasy XVI more than once. Final Fantasy XVI's Final Fantasy New Game Plus mode has been talked about before, but with more insight into the mode and the various features that unlock with it, this is a mode that fans looking for a different experience going through the game a second or third time will find even more fresh and rewarding. Talking about fresh and rewarding, this is the final time I will mention my giveaway of Final Fantasy XVI, in which 2 winners will be winning a digital copy of the game, paid for by yours truly. If you are interested in participating, hit the link in the description or in the comments for your chance to win the game. I will email the winners on Tuesday morning, June 20th, so for all those who participated, keep an eye out for an email to see if you were one of the lucky winners in the giveaway. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get into Final Fantasy mode and how this mode leaves so many other New Game Plus modes in the dust. Oh yeah, and also we've got some news about a confirmed Day 1 patch. In a recent video by IGN, an interview with Final Fantasy XVI's game director Hiroshi Takai and the game's combat designer Ryota Suzuki was had about New Game Plus mode. Upon completing the game, a New Game Plus option unlocks on the main screen, and upon selecting, a new difficulty mode appears along with the story and action modes. This new mode is called Final Fantasy mode, and the description of this mode is quite revealing of how different this difficulty is when compared to a standard new game playthrough. I'm going to pause the screen here and go over this description in case the font is too small to read on your screen. It reads as follows. Replay the game in Final Fantasy mode with data carried over from a previous playthrough. In this mode, the level cap is raised to 100, but enemies are far more powerful. To aid you in your journey, the legendary Ultima weapon is available for crafting. After starting, you will be unable to switch over to story or action-focused mode. Below this description, it reads, character possessions, abilities, and level progression are carried over from your previous playthrough. This confirms that there will be a level cap during our first playthrough of the game, and that upon completing it, the level cap will be raised to 100 if we choose to play New Game Plus in Final Fantasy mode. I don't know about you all, but I think it's pretty awesome that the developers are going above and beyond what we typically find in most games that feature a New Game Plus option. By raising the level cap, allowing players to unlock the best gear and weapons, and changing up combat encounters by throwing in completely different enemies throughout, this mode, I imagine, would make this playthrough feel much more unique to the first playthrough. This is no surprise when we see the game's combat designer, Ryota Suzuki, at the team, as his work on the Devil May Cry series definitely bleeds throughout many aspects of this game, and not just the game's combat, I might add. Devil May Cry is famous for having ever-increasing difficulty levels, with Dante Must Die among the most challenging modes in the game, in which that mode completely remixes enemy spawn locations and grants them various buffs with their Devil Trigger capabilities. Now, obviously, we aren't going to see enemies have Devil Trigger-like capabilities in Final Fantasy XVI's Final Fantasy mode, but we will see much more challenging enemies repopulate the fights in this mode along with different enemy placements. This is all apparent when they show us one of the first areas in the game, the Great Wood, in which there was a Wyvern mid-boss that appeared during the first playthrough of Final Fantasy XVI. Well, as we can see in the Final Fantasy mode playthrough, there is a Chimera enemy along with 2 raptors fighting alongside it, with Suzuki explaining that a different strategy is needed when dealing with a Chimera over that of a Wyvern. We can expect that these different placements of stronger enemies will certainly add a lot of replayability to the game. It should also be noted that during one's first playthrough of the game, during the Greatwood section, Clive only has the use of the Phoenix icon at this point, whereas a Final Fantasy mode playthrough will have all of Clive's abilities and iconic powers at his full disposal. Further on in the interview, director Takai explains, quote, "You'll find new powerful enemies like this in Final Fantasy mode," end quote, when talking about the Chimera battle in Final Fantasy mode compared to the standard Wyvern battle. Does this mean that there will potentially be new enemies introduced to the game in a Final Fantasy mode playthrough? This may actually mean that, just maybe. If we go ahead further into the interview, the video takes us to the Inner Sanctum, an area further into the game where we see a large axe-wielding brute come at the player during the first playthrough of the game. In Final Fantasy mode, however, instead of the axe-wielding brute, we fight an iron giant, in which the developers explained that this enemy first appeared in Final Fantasy II. Whether or not this enemy will appear in a new game playthrough is yet to be seen, but with the developers mentioning these different enemies present in Final Fantasy mode, there may be new enemies introduced here. Fingers crossed there are. So, in totality, Final Fantasy mode reintroduces players to the same story and flow of the initial playthrough. However, players are able to carry with them their levels, gear, abilities, and side quest progression over to Final Fantasy mode, where tougher enemies and reworked enemy placement permeate the game. We also know that players are able to further upgrade their equipment and obtain the Ultima weapon, along with increasing the level cap to 100. Now, if you ask me, this is how you do a proper New Game Plus mode. Going above and beyond the typical just make the enemies tougher moniker, Final Fantasy mode serves as a great option for those itching to find increased replayability through the same game with new tweaks that make the next playthrough feel fresh and unique. I know there are many games that do similar things to Final Fantasy mode, like Devil May Cry, the recent God of War games, Dark Souls 2 with the red phantom spawns, and the like. But it's just great that this is available right after completing the game and doesn't need to be patched in. Now, those are my thoughts on that, so let me know what you think about Final Fantasy mode in the comments below. Are you interested in trying this New Game Plus mode out? Do you think more developers should do modes like this with their games? Let me know in the comments. We also have news that there will in fact be a Day 1 patch for Final Fantasy XVI. Previously announcing months ago that there wouldn't be a Day 1 patch, we have learned that in fact there will be one, with the patch notes on your screen as follows. Fix a control flag issue, which can make progress impossible under very specific circumstances. Fix an issue wherein the game could close unexpectedly under very specific circumstances. Optimize performance in several places, and fix some minor text errors. Square Enix has come out and said that the update would not be required to play Final Fantasy XVI at launch, so for those unable to download the patch, should have a totally fine experience with the game. So, with Final Fantasy XVI out in just a few more days, what are you most looking forward to in the game? Let me know in the comments, and also make sure to participate in the giveaway before Monday night. Watch this video if you'd like to learn more about the game's side quests and how Square Enix wants to improve upon the standard side quest formula found in most AAA games. As always, thank you for your continued support, and I look forward to seeing you real soon in the next one. Peace!